Good afternoon, my co-masterants, especially to our instructor, Sir Jonas Olandria. So before I will start my assigned topic, I will introduce myself first. My name is Ellen Piana from Ubay, Bohol. So my assigned topic is about generation of computers, but I will have just to tackle the first and the second generations. Before we before we came these different laptops nowadays, so we must know first what are those computers before. So this is the different generations of computers. So when we say generations of computer, when we say generation in computer terminology, it is a change and technology. So a computer that the computer being used. Initially, this term used to distinguish between varying hardware technologies, but nowadays both software and hardware will together to make the entire computer system. So there are 5 computer generation, but as I have said, I will just have to tackle the first and the second generation. So the first generation was developed between the year 1946 and to 1955, and it is vacuum tube based. So these are the following characteristic of the first generation computer. So vacuum vacuum tube, it is used vacuum tube. So the vacuum tube of this first generation computer is the basic components for the memory and the circuitry for the CPU. So this vacuum tube generated large amount of heat that this is the reason the first generation computers are frequently shut down. Then bulky and unreliable. So bulky because these first generation computers needs and occupy a very big space, and then unreliable because it can only solve one problem at the time, and then these first generation computers are relying on the program of the programming language. Then limited to basic calculation. Therefore, I said the first generation computer is unreliable because limited ra ang siya makasolve og calculation and makasolve ra pud siya problem one at the time. Then relied on machine language. Then lowest level of programming. Then aside from that, very costly. So at this time moong very costly siya kay syempre first discovered na computer, so costly good siya. Then it is only use 1GL, or this is what we call the first generation language. So aside from that, this first generation computer use machine code as programming language. And then punch card, paper tape, and magnetic tape used as input and output devices. So when they are going to input data, they are going to use punch card, paper tapes, and magnetic tapes. Then that is the first generation. That is the characteristics of the first generation computer. So as to continue the development of computers as well as the technology, we came up for this second generation, or this is what we call the transition computer. So this is the first generation of computer. So mo na yung forma. So very big, bulky, and needs a very big space. Okay, now this is what we call the vacuum tubes that being used in the first picture kanang murag tube, kanang murag bumbilya. So that is what we call the vacuum tube that being used in the first generation computer. So kana siya may main memory sa first main what we call this, the main components of the first generation computer. So in the second generation computers, or this is what we call the transistor computer, this is what we call the transistor. This one kaning naa sa center nga picture mo na siya gitawag og transistor. Then the second generation was developed in the period of the year 1959 to 1965, and this is what we call the transistor based. So these are the following characteristics of the second generation computers. So use of transistors. So what I have said, mo na tong transistors na ilang gigamit. So wa na to si vacuum tube, gialis na siya og transistors. Then reliable and generate less heat. So kung si first generation kay mo generate siya heat, so si second generation mo less na iyang heat, then reliable na pud siya. Smaller size and faster than the first generation, so di na siya mo-occupy og dako nga kayo nga space. And still very costly but cheaper alike from the first generation computers. And then store their instruction in their memory. And then in the first generation computer naara siya one language. Then in the second generation naana siya the what we call the COBOL and the Fortran, which is the language being used or being programmed in the second generation. So aside from these characteristics of the second generation computers, transistor replaced the vacuum tube. Then it also featured the circuit board. Ano na siya mga circuit board na filled with individual transistors and magnetic core memory. Then si first generation computer is low level language, then while the second generation higher level language na siya. Then this computer mag-store na siya instruction in the memory. Then this second generation computer from cryptic binary machine language to symbolic na. Then smaller na pod siya sa first generation computer. Then this is the second generation computer. So man na siya porma sa second generation computer. Dili na kayo siya needs og dakog space, and then higher na pod siya comparing sa first generation nga computer. Then faster na pod siya og mga programming. Okay, this is the second generation computer. So this is the main parts and components of the first, second, third, fourth, fifth generations. Then the next reporter will tackle the third, fourth, and the fifth generation computer. Okay, before I will end my report, I will leave this quote. The computer was born to solve problems that did not exist before. So as we all know today, so kung natay problem, with the help of the internet, matura ta sa computer, search, and we can do things nga masolve ang atong problem, especially now that we are living in the technology. But before, si first and second generation, limited ra ang iyahang function. Okay. That's all. That's the end of my topic. Thank you.